Tim's American Beauty was made by Robust Tools, America's premier lathe manufacturer. Quality hardened tool rests and live centers too. Robust. Built to turn wood. Enjoyed for a lifetime.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood-turning tools. Made by a wood-turner, for wood-turners. But I'm just going in and chunking away at it a little bit at a time. It doesn't have to be pretty right now. Once we get down to our shape, we want to be more careful because we'll not tear out as much wood on the edges. And that's why I'm using hard maple, by the way. If I was using softer wood, it would tear out a lot on these cuts. Let me clear this off here just a little bit more. We're going to look at it, and I'm going to adjust the tool rest too. So turn this off, see where we are in the process. You see, now we're starting to get the edge. And nothing's tearing off yet because we haven't reached that point. Bring this in a little closer. And I'm going to lower it down a little bit. As you make a spindle narrower, you need to lower your tool rest to get back to the angle you need to get the cut. So let's see. Oh, that hit. That would have been bad to start with. Bring it back here. Okay, so I'm going to work on this just a little bit, get it rounded out, and then we'll start shaping it. Now we've got it rounded out. You can see we go right to the edge on all sides. Again, the bone's going to be here, and the meaty part is going to be right here. I'm starting to get hungry talking about this. So what I'm going to do is start shaping this down and get down to here. The wood cut really, really well with the shallow detail gouge I had with the swept-back grind, but I switched to a deep spindle gouge, as you can see right here, with a standard grind, not so swept back, and it actually wound up being easier to cut with because I've always made the comment about big tools like a roughing gouge are kind of like driving a big school bus, and then a little tiny spindle gouge is like getting in a Ferrari. You can make tight turns and go fast. Well, this big thing helped me make the gentle curves I needed for this a lot easier. I'm going to pick up the speed even more because we're pretty much in round now. And all I'm doing is wasting away the wood here. And let's go ahead and make our diameter for the back end of the bone here. I guess that'd be the joint. I never talked to a turkey, so I'm not real sure what it is. Well, maybe now I know. We're gonna come in here, and just by going like this is how you can remove wood really quickly. And so I'm keeping in mind that the meat transition to the bone's about right here. So we got this, I'm just gonna make a planing cut right there. Now I'm going to stop this for 1 second because, again, as the diameter gets smaller, you need to lower the tool rest a little bit more to get your angle of attack back. And I'm also bringing the tool rest in by tilting a little bit more so it gets me closer to the wood. And you can see now how I'm riding the bevel, and that helps a lot. So I want to keep in mind that I want to stay away from I want to stay away from the tip, the point that's in there in the live center. So the end of my bone is probably going to be right there. So I want to make this the larger part. And I got to tell you something. I have to show it to you. I worked on this a long time trying to get this to look like this. In my first prototype, I took into my wife. I was so proud. I said, "Look what I did." And she said, "Great, you made a guitar." Okay, back to the drawing board. It's an art to make a turkey leg. It's not an art to eat one, but it's an art to make one. So anyway, come in here and narrow this down. And once I get this down to about the diameter I need, it doesn't have to be pretty because we're going to carve the end here. Got a little catch, I let it ride like that. Come back here. So I don't need a severe transition here, I just need kind of a flow. I had to look at a turkey bone to figure this out. There we go. I'm going to come here And now right here, we're going to start bringing down the height, because this is going to be the transition. So that's looking pretty good right there. You want to take a light passing cut as you get closer to where your finished diameter is, because it'll leave the wood a lot cleaner. I did it again. Now watch this. I'm going to do this in slow motion if I can. Let me turn it off. We'll actually make this a big lesson, because look what happened. See that design modification? I turned the tool too much like this, the tip caught, and it spiraled out like so. It just comes from inattentiveness and talking too much while you're turning. So I'm sure you guys can only have one of those problems to worry about. The other one is, let me point this out too. I went back to the larger diameter. This is why you watch me. You learn these things by seeing it. You got to raise the tool rest back up to get your angle of attack for the larger diameter. It's kind of a compromise at this point, because I'm good here now, but when I get down lower, watch the tool on my side. As I get down lower, I have to start raising the handle higher and higher and higher to keep the angle of attack on the wood. If you get up to here, then it's uncomfortable. That's when you should lower your tool rest. So you got a little working range here you can go with. Now if I keep turning on this, we're going to wind up with a pork chop instead of a turkey leg. So let me just call it good here on the bone. Make my little transition to the bone right there. And I'm doing all this with a large spindle gouge, remember. So I'm doing a little pull cut. Sanding is going to help immensely on this. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to move to the other end and start shaping the meat part. Now the shape of the turkey leg and the meat, it's up to interpretation. And you can make it any way you want. You don't want to make a perfect cylinder. That'll look a little weird. And so you got to kind of leave it a little lumpy, a little bit kind of natural looking, I guess is the way to put it. But I do kind of want to curve through the whole thing. So this is like an elongated bead. So I'm taking my time, coming here, like so, and I'm just sweeping that out. So I think the end of the leg should be about right here. Now, depending on where you live in the country, if they use those animal steroids, you can make a bigger leg if you want, or a smaller leg if you want. One thing to keep in mind though is the length of this leg is on purpose, because it's about as wide as the napkins we use. Now my wife likes to buy them fancy schmancy napkins that are about 6 yards across when you unfold them. But when I grew up, my mom would always go buy the really cheap little bitty ones you'd see on picnics. So depending on what you use, you might want to scale your napkin holder to whatever you're doing. So on the end of this, I want to slowly get a curve here again. I'm using my body to make the curve. And I got a little bump there, so we're going to kind of round that out. There we go. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, if it's a perfectly nice cylinder, it won't look really turkey-ish. So I'm going to come in like so. Hear that a little bit. Take a little lighter cut. I'm going to take this down a little bit more. And I'm going to sand this. And you can actually sand this while it's spinning. Just use long strips of sandpaper so you keep your fingers clear of the spinning piece. Because the last thing you want to do is have a turkey leg take you out right before Thanksgiving. There we go. Let's just take one quick peek at this before I sand it. And like I said, remember to sand it. You must sand it, sand it, sand it. Then we're going to the bandsaw. Oh, that looks delicious. Now when you sand something that only has one side, you do have to be careful. And one thing is different too is that you want to pick the speed up in this case. If you have the speed too slow, you're like, oh, that's how it goes, honest. Anyway, I've got my longer sheet of sandpaper now. And with the speed built up, watch how these marks go away. See, I can just put pressure into there and it sands. It also fogs up our camera lens with sawdust. Anyway, there you go. So my fingers are clear of it. I'm not going to get whacked or hurt. And then when I get down to this edge over here, I can go ahead and put my hand up against it and get the pressure and sand out the marks that way. I'm starting at 120, and again, I'm going to go up to 240 on this. And then after sanding, after sanding, after sanding, we're going to go to the bandsaw. Now we want our delicious, juicy turkey leg to sit like this. So, how do you figure out that angle? Well, if you actually look at your bandsaw, it's got a slot here, right? So think of this as the flat part of the napkin holder, and you bring this up and you figure, okay, This is sitting like this. Where's my angle? That's about right. That's going to hold my napkins up. So I want to bring it down just a little bit, and I've nipped the ends off already. You can see that these are off of the piece. So we're going to turn this on. There we go. And this is flat on the bottom, so it's an easy cut to make. So you just try to go through as straight as you can and keep your fingers out of the way of the blade. Keep my thumb over here where it's somewhat safe. That's my angle. Now, we get to sand again. So, I have mounted my MDF sanding disc, which is on a faceplate, and it's held with double stick spray adhesive. Not double stick, but it's one stick. Anyway, spray adhesive that holds it on here. This is 80 grit. I'm gonna work my way up to 220. But we have to sand several things. We have to sand the parts where we cut on the bandsaw because it is a bit rougher cut. Also, we need to sand the back, that's the back, of the blank here because it still has some glue residue on it. And we need to artfully sand the ends here just to make those look nice and rounded out. So I'm going to start that up, have the speed of the lathe down a little bit, probably about 500 RPM. Start on these edges right here. Just keep yourself blocked up against it and hold it gently. And start sanding. That looks good. Now I've gone ahead and drilled the holes for the dowels that are going to hold the back plate, and I have a little center finder. This is the hole that's going to hold the turkey leg. And I'm using this little center finder thing. It's a good woodworker's trick, and I'm sure you all know about it, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway. So if I set this right here, and I know that I want this to be shy of the lip right there, but if I do like this, there's my distance, and I go whack, whack, whack. What I've done is I've put a point right there. Now I know where to drill my hole. Now it's not just that simple though, because we're drilling parts that are all different shapes, right? So when you come to your drill press, this has to be perfectly level with this so you can make sure you drill a straight hole. And there's a cool little tool called a wiki, and it's a little digital balance gauge. So you set this on your drill press, you hit 0 and it zeroes that point. Then when you set it onto here, you can adjust this up and down till you get it exactly where you want it. So this is already nice and flat. So I'm going to drill my 2 holes. I also set my depth gauge on this so I won't go too deeply either. And I'm holding this with a clamp so it won't spin. There we go. Make sure I'm on that point. I'm using a brad point bit, which is nice because it just goes exactly where you tell it to go. And you want to push gently on this because if you push too hard, you could rock the wood out of the position you have it being held in right now. And you can see this hole's a little off center, and that's why I use those little center finders to help you get your holes to match up exactly. So when I put this piece of wood, I'll show you right now, when this goes onto here with the dowels, it's going to go on here and it's going to sit flush in the back. And that's because I marked it exactly to where those holes are. Now we're going to do a little bit more drilling, which is on this. Then we're going to carve the end of the bone. I'm just using my Dremel sander to start making the bone shape. Well, it's kind of look like that. Obviously, you can tell this is a really healthy turkey by the size of his bone. Anyway, we'll get this carved down. Then I think we're going to be ready for assemblage. Now we're ready to assemble. Color, dye, all that stuff. We are going to work with dye, so put gloves on before you open the bottle. That's why you watch me. Okay, gonna get this on. So, we're gonna be protected here. Now, when you assemble this, it's real simple. I cut 3 little dowels, they go into the holes, and then everything meets up and pushes together like so. And your leg goes on there like that. So, it's real simple to put together, but we can't put it together until we put a finish on it. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to put some hand rubbed polyurethane on the napkin part and watch how all of that bird's eye pops out. Isn't that incredible? Now you want to put on a light coat when you're doing the hand rub stuff. So you put it on kind of thick and let it soak as you're doing it. And then after you got it on there for just a bit, you can come back with the dry end of this and just wipe off the excess. Because if you don't wipe off the excess, you get a really lumpy finish on there. Now this will take 3 or 4 coats to get it to where you want it. But you can see we already have a good start on that. It's really pretty. Now, to go to the drumstick, we want to put a color on it, right? Get all my poly off of there. So I'm using Trans-Tint Medium Brown. This is a dye. This will make 2 quarts. It costs like 15 bucks or so, but it makes 2 quarts of dye. And I put it in here. You need to have a glass cup, by the way, when you do this, because I'm using alcohol to thin this down, and it goes right through the side of any paper cups. That's why I have 19 paper cups right there so we can get this done. And I got the color mixed the depth that I wanted, so I'm going to dip this in here. You notice one thing, I put some blue tape here because I don't want the color of the meat to go into the bone. That'd look a little weird. And this looks really light right now, but the more coats I apply, the darker it will get. And it dries really quickly being alcohol based. But with this Trans-Tint, you can also put water in it. Another cool thing you can do about it too is you can mix it with your polyurethane and actually have the coloration in your poly finish, which I've got to try that sometime because that sounds like a neat shortcut. But you can see we're getting that golden turkey color right there. Isn't that nice? So you want to cover this whole thing up. And again, like I said, make sure you wear gloves. Wear your lousy clothes because you don't want to get any of this stuff on your new clothes or good clothes. You know, your wife will let you have it. And I have a feeling I'll hear a few words tonight because I got the wrong shirt on for doing this. So this goes on here. Again, it's alcohol based, so it'll dry real quickly. And the cool thing about it is, let me put this down here so it can dry and get there. I'm going to take my gloves off now. Is over on my finish piece. I actually made it a little darker, so I might actually make that one a little darker too. But you could put a polyurethane over here. I already have 1 coat of polyurethane on all this. I'm going to put probably about 3 or 4 more, and this will really pop out at that point. So that is how you make a Thanksgiving turkey leg napkin holder. I hope you really enjoyed that project. I loved it a lot. So until the next time, keep turning.
Tim's American Beauty was made by Robust Tools, America's premier lathe manufacturer. Quality hardened tool rests and live centers too. Robust. Built to turn wood. Enjoyed for a lifetime.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood turning tools. Made by a wood turner for wood turners.